Breaking news here at CBS Sports HQ. It's been a rough first half, first day slate of games at the 1 o'clock Sunday, week 2. A lot of big injuries as we see a lot of quarterbacks going down. Tua Tagovailoa, Tyrod Taylor, those guys not expected to return. Andy Dalton not going to return. The Bears. It's been a rough first start of the game. TJ Watt, Tyson Alualu for the Steelers. Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield got hurt in that game, but he came back. Jarvis Landry not coming back, dealing with that knee injury. Brandon Graham hurts his ankle. Danny Amendola hurts his hamstring. It's been a rough day all around. Christian McCaffrey dealing with cramps. Who knows if he's going to be able to go. Just a tough start to the Sunday games here with week number 2. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Pete Prisco. So Pete, when you start, let's start with the quarterbacks here, because Tua Tagovailoa being carted off with the rib injury, not good for Jacoby Brissett coming in. Last year they had the luxury of Ryan Fitzpatrick as their starter, second guy, however you want to view him. Tua did have a good performance in week 1 against the Patriots. Not a bad start to the game against Buffalo, but Jacoby Brissett not getting the job done.
No, and this is a situation where this was Tua's year. I mean, he's got to be able to show people he's the guy. At least in Miami, you keep hearing the rumblings about Deshaun Watson. He's going to be the guy, this, and this. Well, Tua rib injury, we don't know how bad it is, but it's going to, obviously, if it's a fracture, it's going to force them to miss a significant amount of time. So when I look at this, damning for the Miami Dolphins. They've been flat today. They haven't played very well anyways. But when you lose your quarterback and then you got to take the field and hope the backup quarterback can play, sometimes that really does deflate the team. And they're playing a good team today, and a desperate team, Buffalo, who's supposed to be a really good team and played poorly last week. So add it all up, it's a big hit for Miami. I don't think Jacoby Brissett can consistently win games over the long haul of the season. So if it's a short injury, that's fine. If it's a long one, it's a problem.
Let's go to Chicago, where Andy Dalton left the game with a knee injury. And, I know Bears fans, fantasy managers, were waiting to see Justin Fields. I don't think anybody wanted to see it happen this way in particular, but Andy Dalton leaving just before the half with a knee injury. Bears were ahead in this game against the Bengals. Their defense has been playing fantastic. Justin Fields hasn't exactly done much. But do you think this is now the situation that Bears fans, not necessarily the team, was hoping for? Justin Fields taking over, is Andy Dalton going to get the job back?
Well, he made the defense play better. I mean, they have a pick 6. Roquan Smith had a pick 6. He hasn't done a lot, and there's a reason why he's not playing. That's the thing about this. When the fans all want this guy to play, the coach has an idea who should be playing and who should be playing. Maybe in practice he doesn't get through the progressions. Andy Dalton's a veteran who does get through the progressions. Depending on how bad the injury is, Jamie, if he's out for a couple games and Fields plays really well, then you stay with him. If he's out for a couple games or however long he's out and Fields doesn't play well, when Andy Dalton comes back, he goes back in.
We know last year, for example, it happened with Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor. Taylor getting the shot that punctured his lung, and Justin Herbert took over, and we saw just great things from the rookie quarterback. So maybe something happens in Chicago with Dalton leaving the game with the knee injury. Justin Fields again taking over for the Bears. We'll see what happens for week 3 as they take on the Browns. Tyrod Taylor, again, not a punctured lung this time. It was a hamstring injury for him, knocking him out of the game. And this one was really unfortunate for the Texans because they were playing really well. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 passing to Phillip Lindsay, 1 rushing to help the Texans have a lead there. They were actually tied 14-14 at the half. And then Davis Mills comes in and things have not looked good for them.
Well, so you picked it up a little bit.
You mentioned Deshaun Watson's name. We know he's not playing. Davis Mills, I don't know if he's their quarterback of the future, but he might be their quarterback of the present depending on how long Tyrod Taylor's injury lingers.
And he's come in and he's done some good. He threw an interception, which was a questionable interception. I didn't think it was one. And he's come in this drive. They're going down. They're on the 2-yard line. He's actually done some pretty good things. So, look, you don't want to lose Tyrod Taylor. He's played very well. I mean, he's done some good things. They were right in this game, and he had done some good things getting outside the pocket and creating with his legs. I like the makeup of the Texans because they have a lot of veterans that are going to hang around in games. You lose your starting quarterback, then that starts opening up a whole can of worms where guys, start like, hey, wait a second, what are we playing for here? And you got to worry about that.
Taylor was 10 of 11 for 125 yards and the touchdown, and then the 15-yard touchdown run to, at that point, put the Texans up 14-7. But again, Davis Mills coming in so far, 3 of 7, 38 yards, and the interception. Does have 2 carries for -1 yard. So we'll see what happens there with the quarterback. So again, the 3 big quarterback injuries that we're looking at: Tua Tagovailoa with the rib injury, Andy Dalton with the knee injury, Tyrod Taylor with the hamstring injury. Let's stay in that same game in Cleveland because Jarvis Landry got knocked out of the game early with a knee injury. We know that the Browns were already down Odell Beckham. So had a little scare with Baker Mayfield. Also, he hurt his shoulder. He stayed in the game. He's 16 of 18 for 188 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Landry was excellent last week, Pete, for the Texans for the Browns against the Chiefs. He ran for a touchdown, 5 catches. He's typically played much better for the Browns when we have not seen Beckham in there. Now we don't know what's going to be the case for both of the Browns' top 2 receivers. Do you think this makes the team want to rush back Odell Beckham a little bit sooner as they head into week 3?
Well, you don't want to rush him back if he's ready to go. And, there was talk of him being ready to go in the first couple weeks. So he's obviously close. If he's close to being back, then you put him in there. You don't want to ever take a guy like Beckham, particularly when you're the Browns and you have high aspirations. You think you're going to be a Super Bowl contender this year. Don't rush him back in there. But this hurts them because Jarvis Landry's a really good receiver. You know what we're learning today? Really? The NFL is a violent game. It's
you
funny.
You just learned that? You've been covering it for 30 years?
People
you once heard a guy's femur explode on the field.
I did. And people have no idea, unless you're actually on the field or been around the field, how violent and nasty it is. And guys get hurt. And it's almost like the season becomes a survival test. And here we are in week 2. We're seeing starting quarterbacks go down. That's never a good thing.
Well, we're going to see it, especially with the additional game. So, that could certainly lead to more injuries as the additional action carries over. But Pittsburgh Steelers off to a little bit of a struggling start today in terms of how the game has unfolded in the matchup against the Raiders, and they already were down Joe Hayden and Devin Bush coming into the game. They lose Tyson Alualu for an extended period of time with a broken ankle, but also TJ Watt, clearly their star defender, out with a groin injury. So, Pete, this was a great defensive performance that they had in week 1 against Buffalo. They're not playing poorly against the Raiders per se. 16-7 is what they're trailing right now. The offense really
16-14, they just scored.
16-14. Hopefully it was Ben Roethlisberger.
It was. He threw a touchdown pass to Harris.
There you go. He's gotten something going a little bit there, but not enough so far. We'll see how things finish for him. In any event, TJ Watt, how concerning is this injury?
That's concerning because, he's their guy. It was Bud Dupree and him, and then Bud Dupree left, suffered the knee.
They did bring in Melvin Ingram. And
they brought in Melvin Ingram, who didn't play that well last year, has a sack today. And they like Highsmith, the young kid. But that's who they are. That's their identity, is rushing the passer off the edge. And if TJ Watt, who just got, thank God he got his contract, right? I mean, he was going to get it anyways. It doesn't sound like this is a major injury, so hopefully he'll be back soon rather than later. It might be just an ankle sprain.
Right. You always get concerned, though, when star players leave the game, especially when they're trailing. So they would like to, I'm sure, have TJ Watt back immediately and ready for week 3. Bradley Chubb missed week 1 with an ankle injury, left week 2 with an ankle injury against Jacksonville. Not that the Broncos really have needed him much, but clearly that's a nice luxury to have, one of the better pass rushers, young pass rushers, playing opposite Von Miller. So the Broncos are winning 20-7 at the start of the 4th quarter, but Bradley Chubb dealing with that ankle injury. So is this going to be another year of him, struggling through some injury concerns?
Yeah, this was the first time those two had played together, him and Von Miller, since I think 2017, I think, or 18, and that's a long time because they both had injuries, major injuries, and now they thought today would be the day they get them back together, and he's been bothered by this ankle injury all along, and remember, he had the major knee injury, but he's been bothered by the ankle injury. To not have him on the field with Von Miller, particularly as you move forward, not so much in this game, but as you move forward, that's troubling.
For the Eagles, Brandon Graham left the game with an ankle injury, one of their better defensive players. It was a good start for the Eagles. They were playing really well on both sides of the ball, and then the 49ers just started to chip away, and now they're leading that game 14-3. Score's a little misleading because Philadelphia was certainly in this game to start, but now you're seeing the Eagles potentially down one of their better defensive players. How's that going to impact that unit moving forward?
Yeah, he's a good player. And when you talk to people around the league, most fans might not know who Brandon Graham is, but the league people do. They know he shows up week in and week out. He's been doing it for a long time. And to have a guy who can rush the passer go down at any point is really tough to deal with going forward. So hopefully he's not out that long either. Brandon Brooks also dealing with an injury situation as well. So and he missed all of last year. Yeah, both sides of the ball for Philadelphia really beat up right now. Never a good thing. And this is a team that looked great in week 1. I mean, they were fantastic in week 1, and maybe the Falcons are that bad, but they looked awesome. And they've looked good in this game at times. It's just when you start losing players on either line, particularly on either line, then you have problems.
All right, so we'll see if key member on the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia, key member on the defensive side for Philadelphia, those guys are healthy moving forward. But again, for week number 2, doesn't look like they're going to be back as the 49ers are holding a 14-3 lead. 10 and a half minutes left in the game there in the fourth quarter. One game that's going to start soon is the Titans and the Seahawks, and Taylor Lewan, who had a knee injury last season that knocked him out at the end of the year, ruled inactive for this week's game against the Seahawks. Pete, I know you were not impressed with how he played in week 1 against the Cardinals as J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones with the 5 sacks. Lewan not going to play today against Seattle. How's it going to impact an offense that really looked bad last week?
And he was hard on himself, and so I expected him to bounce back. For him not to be in this game is big. And again, if you got the version of what they got last week, it's not that big of a loss, but I thought he was going to play better. He was one of the worst tackles I've ever seen last week, and he was once a Pro Bowler. He was a good player. So they'll have to adjust, but I think, you know, with Tannehill and they run the ball and get the ball out of his hands, I think they'll be okay. Look, nobody's playing left tackle worse than he played it last week.
But he wasn't your spinning top, though.
No, because he was coming off an injury. Otherwise, he would have been the spinning top.
All right, so we'll see if who's the replacement.
We'll probably move the right tackle over and play him at left tackle. It's not a good situation.
All right, so we'll see how things go for the Titans offense. Remember, bad week 1 for Ryan Tannehill fantasy-wise, Derrick Henry fantasy-wise, Julio Jones fantasy-wise, A.J. Brown did score a touchdown, but not a great game for him. So we'll see if Taylor Lewan's absence is really that much of a detriment to those guys bouncing back in week number 2. There's your injury update for what's happened so far on Sunday. And make sure you're checking out Inside the NFL. New episodes drop every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. It's exclusively on Paramount Plus. I'm sure they'll have a lot to talk about with the injuries in week 1, week 2, as well as all of the week 2 action as they bring you up to date on everything around the NFL.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.